I can still remember being up at the cabin and waking up to the sound of sizzling bacon and eggs and the smell of my grandma's famous blueberry muffins, which I still love to this day. At the cabin, we'd go out back and wade through the creek, run through the woods, kill rattlesnakes, and hike to the cave. In the evening, we'd drink root beer or Coca-Cola from the glass bottles and sit on the deck watching the sun go down. I always loved being up at the cabin with my grandparents. My grandparents are part of what's called the greatest generation. I call it the generation of the good old days because it was the good old days of America, of American industrialism, of building real things like cars, trucks, clothes, and steel, not microwave junk and imports from China. It was the good old days of real American values like honesty, integrity, and hard work, not entitlement and laziness and corruption. It was when you did a deal and you sealed it with a handshake, and your word was your bond. And it was a wonderful time of classic muscle cars, of being able to leave your doors unlocked, relax on the porch with a lemonade, or play baseball in the sandlot. Now it's not so much going up to the cabin as it is going down to my grandpa's ranch. And I love going down there because there's a huge old oak tree right next to a little stream that runs through the property. I love being able to go down there and slow down and just lean up against the oak tree in the shade and take a deep breath and just think. Now obviously not all of the good old days were good. After falling in love with the market, after lusting after the sexy promises of fast money on Wall Street, after getting burned in events like the Great Depression and dealing with World War II, the greatest generation figured out that they were going to take a cautious approach with their money. They weren't going to lose it again. They'd seen what happens when you risk your money and lose it. And for years, literally decades, this generation saved their money safely and securely, not risking it and gambling it in Wall Street. After events like the Great Depression and World War II, the greatest generation took a cautious approach to financial planning, investing, and retirement. The buzzwords for this generation were guarantees and safety. They saved their money. It's not surprising considering in 1929 the stock crash that lost people fortunes and the financial collapse and insolvency of over 10,000 banks. After these horrible events, people avoided stocks and equity markets like the plague. In fact, in 1952, 23 years after the '29 crash, stockholders represented only 4% of the American population. And what's amazing is that in 1980, a full 50 years later, that number had only increased by 9%. Then the 401k was created, and from 1980, in just 18 short years, a full 52% of Americans were gambling their money in the market. You've probably heard the proverb, fools forget history and are doomed to repeat it. So in learning from the greatest generation, what did they do if they didn't invest in the stock market? According to Barry Dyke, author of the powerful expose Pirates of Manhattan, they saved their money in guaranteed insurance contracts. In fact, 50% of every dollar saved during these years actually went into insurance policies. Why? Life insurance policies didn't lose money when the market crashed in 1929. They didn't lose money in 1939 when the market dropped 89%, or in 73 when the Dow dropped 45%, or 2008 when it dropped another 40%, or in 2011 when it dropped again. On top of that, it's an industry with an unparalleled track record. Many of the companies have been around over 100 years, some for over 300 years. Several of these long-lasting companies insured people like Sir Isaac Newton. They declined Napoleon for life insurance twice and insured the Titanic when it sank. The terrible events of the Depression and World War II taught the greatest generation a thing or two about safety, security, guarantees, and quality. In fact, just the other day I was at an antique show, and on the way my father and I stopped at the cemetery to visit my great-great-great-grandfather's grave. He came to the United States of America from the Jersey Island in England and actually settled the town of Wellsville, where we continued on, where we were headed that day to attend the antique show. I was amazed at the tractors that we saw. Some were 80, even 100 years old, and they still fired up and ran almost as good as new. In today's microwave society, we're lucky to keep something running for a few years, let alone a decade or a century. It's unfortunate that the wisdom learned by our ancestors has been forgotten over time by most people. But not everybody. There are still those who value a good hard day's work, who love their family and want to keep their money safe. And they're doing it the same way it's always been done, using guaranteed insurance contracts that protect your wealth from crashes, that provide tax-free income you can count on for the rest of your life, and a retirement that's backed by real companies that have stood the test of time through world wars, recessions, and depressions. In fact, when structured properly, some of the advances made with insurance contracts have been designed specifically to use for retirement, with lower fees, lower commissions, while still growing your money 12 to even 17% every year, safely and securely. It's not Wall Street's darling. In fact, it's far from it. It's not sexy, but you know it's going to be there for you, come rain or shine. And if you want to learn more about protecting your wealth from crashes, taxes, and hyperinflation, you can actually request a personal analysis and a blueprint that will show you exactly how it can work for you with a qualified representative, completely free. Anyone can experience the security and peace that comes from returning to what our parents and grandparents learned during the good old days. Tens of thousands of Americans are returning to those wise principles of hard work, honesty, entrepreneurship, and saving for the future. For them, the days of hot apple pie, lemonade on the porch, and happy memories that last a lifetime are still happening every day.